And now we're going to look at visual reports. So let's RPC in, and we're back over here into Dashboard Designer. So I'm going to go into Performance Point Content, and this time I'll go to the Create tab just to be different. And drawing across the top, here's my different types of reports I have, and I'm going to create an analytic chart. And I'll click on in, and now it's asking me for a data source of the chart. And again, I'm going to come in and take my connection into my cube, and I'll say finish. And that was pretty easy. We'll wait for the chart to open. All right, as soon as the chart opens, we get this little error down here. It wants us to take measures. It wants to put some information down here so that it can draw a chart that's in relationship. Now you see over here, here's measures and dimensions. And again, these measures and dimensions are the same as the measures, and these are the dimensions that we looked at down in our OLAP cube. When I selected the connection into my OLAP cube, the chart picked these up and brought them back. So if I expand out measures, I can take sales amount down here, and now I can right click on it, and you see I can move it to the series or to the background, etc. And we'll move it into a series. There's sales amount, and it's going to give me an immediate error down here because it's not in relation to anything to show a chart. To do a relation, we're going to come in here, we're going to add a dimension down here. So let's go through and put a dimension in the sales amount. So I've expanded out the product dimension, and here are the members of the product dimension. This is not a course on SQL Server Analysis Services, though hopefully somebody in your organization has a really good knowledge of that. But as we drill down in here, we want to see sales amount, and let's look at it by brand name. I'm going to right-click brand name, and I'm going to say move to bottom axes, and up pops my chart. So I've got it down here, and you can see the different brand names as we bring this stuff on across. Now I'm going to dump that on out so I can show you something different. And now I'm going to go in, and you see this triangle shape? That means this is a hierarchy. So if I right-click product and move that to bottom axes, I get a blob. Now if I pull down the chevron under bottom axes, let me see if I can resize this. Are you going to... Okay, there we go. If I pull down the chevron, you see the default member means everything, which gave me that blue blob. And I'm going to clear this out, and now we're going to come in, and I'm going to select audio, TV, cameras, and that's fine. You see, I could also drill on down the list and get as granular as I want to. But we'll go audio, TV, and just for laughs, let's go home appliances too. And say OK. And now I've got my grids in here, and I've got that shown down here. So now everything would be the same. It'd be the same as before. I'd come over into the properties, and I would give it a name, and this analytical report is looking at sales amount, and I'm going to say by product. Right? And normally we would come down there and say what type of products we're looking at, audio, cameras, etc. But I'm not going to take the time. You got the idea. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to call it sales amount by product subsets. Good enough. Okay. Display folder, I'm going to put a new display folder in here. I'm going to create, and I'm going to call this charts. So that we've got that, and we'll say OK. And now I've got my analytical chart. Now let's come back over. And where are we? Here's charts, and let's create a new chart. So I'm going to right click in here, and now we'll come in and create a different kind of a chart. I'm going to come in, and there we go. There we go. Charts down here. I'll select an analytical grid, again connecting into analysis services, because it gives me all of those features that I want. You know, that is Dashboard Designer is much more functional when we're tying into a grid. So now we're going to go in, let's do it again, sales amount. I'm going to move this down here. This time I'm going to move it in the rows. And now I'm going to come down and I'm going to select my product, dimension. And again, we'll do it just to show it to you. I'm going to do brands, and I'll right click that, and I'll move that into columns. And now I've got the same data that I was showing over in the other report, but this time in a tabular method, more like a spreadsheet. So let's dump this and add the hierarchy, and I'll move that into columns. And now you see the hierarchy shown down here. Here's sales amount. And if I click the plus, that expands on out. And now I can expand this one out too, etc. And I can move up and move on down. Of course, I could have put product over here on rows and sales amount on columns, flipping it any way I want. So let's go in and we're going to name this. Okay, this is sales amount by product and in a grid, just to differentiate it. And that's fine. And by the way, here's the query. Here's the MDX query. You could also cut and paste the query into. There are some changes you have to do if you're actually cutting and pasting the query into, because if you see this MDX select and it drops on down from sales, there are some changes if you copy and paste over from analysis services and you go in and you create a query there and then you paste it on in. There are some minor changes you have to do beyond the scope of this course. So now let's go back over, and now we're going to go back over and take a look at, here's sales product. I'm going to go back into properties, and I'm going to add to this chart, just so I can differentiate grid. Okay, and we'll come back over to the design view. And now if I right click down here in the design view, so you can see sales amount, I can do sorts, etc. Okay, drill down to, and now I could come down and I can actually drill into this information. Now this is more interesting when we deploy it, so let's do that. I'm going to come in, I'm going to create a scorecard. I'm going to right click, new, and I want to create a scorecard so I can put the chart into it. Okay, made a mistake in there. I wanted to create a dashboard. So reports go into dashboards, not into scorecards. So I'm down here again on the performance point, and I'm going to right click on the performance point, and I'm going to say new dashboard. And I'm going to select just a standard old template. 2 columns is fine. I'm just showing two columns in there. As a matter of fact, let's make life easier for me. For later on, I'm going to select 3 columns, and I'm going to say OK. And here my dashboard is up. I've got a left column and I've got a right column. So now again on the details, if I expand out reports, expand out performance point, there's the charts, expand this out. Now I'm going to take this ALs, which should be sales, amount in grid, we'll drop it here. And then I'm going to take sales amount in a chart, and we're going to drop it there. And now I'm going to come through and I'm going to name this dashboard visual reports. And that's fine. I'm going to put it into a display folder. I'm going to browse. I'm going to create a new one, dashboards. And I'll say OK. And notice the document library. That's something new. I'm going to click Browse for that document library. Let the document library come on up. And now the document library, I'm emphasizing library because I'm looking at a library now. Over here we looked at data connections and performance point content, which were lists. I'm now looking at the library, dashboards, and that library exists on Mathino Group member server, and I'm going to say OK. All right. Now master page is loaded on up. If you're not a web developer, don't worry about it. But we're just going to go with minimal master page. And I happen to like page numbers. So I'm going to put include page list for navigation. Now hold a second before I deploy this so I can show you SharePoint. Okay, let's go home. Let's go to Mathino Group. Here's dashboards. And I'm going to select dashboards up in here, and I'm going to call refresh. Right? And you notice there is nothing up here yet in the dashboard library. Back over to performance point content. Now down here in performance point content, there is a dashboard. All right, when I get into the dashboard section, I'll explain that in a little more detail. So let's go back over, and now we've got this, and now let's make this run. So let's find it. I've named this Visual Reports dashboard down in here, and I'm going to right click down here, and I'm going to say deploy to SharePoint. I need to do this so I can show you the Visual Reports running in a web page. Pause while it deploys. Okay, it's deployed out, page 1, clever. You know, you would rename the page, but here's the difference. Remember, they're showing the exact same information. And again, I can expand this on out and drill it on down, etc., as deep as I can go. And over here in the chart, if I right-click in the chart and come down here, I can select measures. So I could come in here and look at a different measure, and I can also come in here. Here's my additional actions. I can look in more details. I can show the information bar. Let's do that. So there's no background selected for the information bar. If I pull this down, now I can edit in a new menu, etc. I can export this chart to Power Pivot or to Excel. Let's right click on this chart again, and now you see this drill down to, so I can come back and I can add other filters into this chart. Now I can go in and set values such as filter. I can go top 10, etc. So let's come in and just look at it, and we're going to come in and we're going to say top 10 from count, from home appliances, whatever it is I want to look at. Let's just go audio, and we'll say OK. And now as it comes through there, it gives me the top 10 count and does that filter. I can come over here into the grid and right click in the grid, and you see I have the same, well, here's collapse. I have the same features. I can come down here again, I can drill down and I can set something. Okay, let's drill on down, and let's drill down to product, and we're going to drill down within product, if I can get that up. And I'm going to go into product subcategories. And now I have all the product subcategories shown up here. Again, I can right click. Now look, report type. Watch me flip this. This is why it really doesn't matter which report type you take. Let's flip this over to bar chart. And now I've got a bar chart in here. So if I if I can get this working. No, never mind. There, oh fudge. All right, I just expanded it on out so I can show it in one page, which I really didn't want to do. So now I've got that chart all shown. Okay, you saw me flip this one. Now I'm over here in the chart instead of in the grid. I'm going to right click on the grid, and now I can select report type, and I can flip this one all. Also, it doesn't matter down here. So let's just select line chart with markers. And now I've got this line chart, which really doesn't, a line chart does not present this information well like the bar chart does, because line charts aren't designed for this kind of information. And now we'll go report type. Let's come in and we're going to set it up to a, if I can find it, there's a pie chart. And now I've got my different pies. You see they're 100% because each one of them is a subcategory in and of itself. So now I can drill down there. I can also, let me show you this, select measures, right? I can add another measure in here. I'm looking at sales amount right now. So now I'm going to select sales amount category also. I'm going to sales discount amount. And I can close that on out. And if I could get, wait a minute, I screwed that up just a second. Helps when you add the OK in here. Let me change this out. Let me clear sales amount, and we're going to sales discount amount, and now I'll say OK. And now it's got the discount amount. Of course, it's 100% again because I'm, looking at each individual. If we come up here, this will show you a little better. I'm going to go select measures again, and we're showing sales amount. Let's go to sales discount amount. Select OK, and now we're showing the sales discount amount. So all of that to say, when we're over here creating these charts. And I add these measures down here, what's really driving it is once I'm up and deployed, I still have a connection into my underlying data source so I can come through and make some changes. Back over to page 1, and let's right click in this, and now we're going to select the showstopper, which is decomposition tree. Okay, so I selected decomposition tree and I was on cameras and camcorders, and she's shown right in here, and that's my product subcategory. Here's my camcorders, and if I expand on out, see, I'm now coming through, I'm looking at the different product name. Again, I can write, yeah, this is all, by the way, this requires Silverlight to be installed. I can drop this in here, and now I can come in and I can add, I'm looking at cameras, and I can do a slice. So let's go in there by geography, and let's go continent name. So now you see I'm seeing cameras and whatever it was, camcorders, and here it is by the different continents that I'm looking at. So if I click in the right place, I can come in here and let's go in and select date, and we'll go with calendar, let's see, year, quarter, month. I'm looking at, here's my fiscal, I prefer that. Let's go fiscal quarter. All right, now I'm looking at this by fiscal quarter. Here's my camcorders, etc. And I can drop on down, I can switch that on out, I can switch the display. But now here's, let's say I'm interested in fiscal quarter, this one down in here. Now I can, oh fudge, click in it, and I can expand it out, and I want to know by employee level 3. So now I know by employee, cameras and camcorders, whatever this quarter was, 2009, the second quarter, 1.1 million, and how it deployed on out. And see, I can take this top quantity and decompose it all the way down. This is an excellent analytical tool. I can also flip the grid. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, instead of showing, I'm going to flip it on over into a grid. And now I've got my decomposition tree flipped on into a grid. And again, as I come across, I can look at the different charts. I know that's really hard to see. And I can also come in here and I can filter the empty rows. All right. And I can come in here and I can go in and add it back in. Filter empty columns or filter empty rows. Right. So I've got my sales discount amount. Again, and if I can sort it up from the bottom to the top, that's set to, that's the decomposition tree.